welcome to Two Gay Tuesdays on QueerPublicRadio.com. On Two Gay Tuesdays, we will discuss news and events happening in our world. Much of it will be related to our lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, intersex, and allied communities. Our goal is to inform, enlighten, and have some fun along the way. Join Kale and Tom and occasional guests as we explore our world in hopes of making it a better place. Most of our content will show a great need for more understanding and love involving the treatment of our fellow human family members. All human family members. On with the show. Hello and welcome to the first installment of Two Gay Tuesdays show on QueerPublicRadio.com.
Hello, how y'all?
Hey, Kale, how you doing?
Hey, Tom, I want to say right off the top of the show, it is such a thrill and pleasure to be part of Queer Public Radio once again, and mahalo for choosing me to be your co-host. I am so overjoyed.
Oh, well, that's very sweet. Mahalo to you for being part of it. I mean, I feel honored to have you here. I really do. I did it so long by myself. It's just wonderful to have somebody here with me, and I think that speaks a lot for you, because a lot of people wouldn't take their personal time, out of their personal life, to come sit here with me and talk about the gay community.
Well, I, for one, think it's an important thing for us to be doing.
And this is our first show for Two Gay Tuesdays, which didn't air on October 2nd, 2012. Due to technical difficulties, we apologize for that. I hope to have them all squared away by next week for our second Two Gay Tuesdays show. Goodness, I'm embarrassed about that. But anyway, onward. The quote of the day. Here it is. I almost shudder at the thought of alluding to the most fatal example of the abuses of grief which the history of mankind has preserved, the cross. Consider what calamities that engine of grief has produced. And that was a quote from President John Adams.
Hey, Tom, did you know on this day back in 1973, Dr. Howard Brown, former New York City health administrator, came out, and he later became the director of the National Gay Task Force?
I did not know that.
Wow. Well, here's another one you might not know. On this day in 1985, actor Rock Hudson died of complications from AIDS. His death resulted in greater attention to the AIDS epidemic.
Yeah, I didn't realize what. I mean, of course, I knew Rock Hudson died of complications of AIDS, but I didn't remember it was October 2nd, 1985. That was a sad time.
Well, back in 1997 on this day, Variety, the magazine Variety, objected to the Motion Picture Association of America's decision to give the movie Bent an NC-17 rating, pointing out that the sex scenes were far less graphic than those of heterosexual sex scenes in movies which receive R ratings.
Yeah, that Bent, they had a lot of problems with Bent. I know when they perform it in some high schools and stuff, there's still to this day issues with that.
On October 4th, 1983, the AFL-CIO voted to support gay rights legislation. That's a big one.
Woo-hoo! Wow.
And on one sad note, on October 6th, 1998, 21-year-old gay college student Matthew Shepard of Wyoming was pistol-whipped and tied to a fence in a field. He would later die of his injuries at a hospital in Fort Collins, Colorado. That one always makes me sad when I remember that date.
Yeah, very sad story, definitely. Oh, let's see. Thought for the day. My thought for the day today. Words. Words have meaning beyond their mere definition. As is often said, be careful what comes out of your mouth because you can't take it back. And so today, the thought for the day is about words and the power they have. Little story. A father with his 20-something-year-old son was on a train. The son was very excited. He excitedly proclaimed, "Look at the clouds, Dad. They're rolling around and moving." And the boy, even though he was 20-something years old, was excitedly describing everything he was seeing. The lady sitting across the aisle, a tad bit annoyed by this, looked at the father and said, "You should take him out more often." The man stated that he had every intention to. He further explained to the lady that his son had just recovered from a successful eye surgery, which gave the boy sight for the first time in his life. The lady didn't have anything else to say the rest of the trip. But I actually believe that lady wouldn't have said anything in the first place if she was aware that the boy was experiencing sight for the first time in his life. But there wasn't any way the lady could have known. So part of me likes to think that many people don't want to offend or injure others with their remarks. Let's do a little hypothetical. Let's build a little group of people. We'll call them Group Q. With that in mind, I remind you of our LGBTQIA community. Most of us don't wear signs or any type of jewelry or anything saying we are a member of the LGBTQIA community. So let's toss all of us folks into that Group Q. Non-able-bodied people don't wear signs either. Some of them do not have noticeable impairments. So let's toss those folks into Group Q. Victims of abuse, whether it be mental or sexual or whatever type of abuse, they don't wear signs. So let's toss all of those folks into Group Q. And let's not forget that all these people that are currently in Group Q have close friends and relatives. So we've got to add all those friends and relatives to Group Q. As you can see, the size of Group Q is now rather large, and I'm sure there are others who would be members of Group Q that I did not mention. Obviously, Group Q is a rather large group of people. So, at least one of them may be in earshot of your comments at some point. Positive interactions create a more positive world. Much love to all.
Wow, Tom, that was amazing.
Oh, thank you, Kale.
I have a comment for the day. Equal marriage, whatever you want to call it what you will. Every person on the planet should be able to commingle, cohabitate, or coexist together to celebrate this journey we call human life. Why not choose a joyous journey over one filled with hate, bigotry, or worse yet, indifference? Remember, silence equals death. We all must stand up for what we believe in, true, but we all must stand up for what is right. For all.
Yeah, baby. You know, that a lot of people have said similar words, very famous people, throughout the history of our world. And I think of just a couple more words to add on to that people often forget. What affects one of us affects all of us. And united we must stand, or divided we will fall. Awesome.
That is so true. That is so true.
Awesome comment, Kale. That's, that's basically, I just, said what you just said again. But it can't be said too often, that's for sure. Let's jump on right on down to our gay news. Oh, go ahead, Kale. Take the first one for us.
All righty. Well, just a little political reminder. Firstly and mostly, vote. If you aren't registered to vote, you should be. Quite frankly, if people can't vote their voice, then I would think they probably shouldn't discuss politics at all. If you aren't part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
Didn't you post something today on Facebook that they only have until, what, the 8th or the 9th to register?
That is correct. Here in Hawaii, our voter registration ends on October the 9th.
Oh, yeah. Hello?
Well, most of us already know we need to vote for Obama. That's a given. But we also know Congress has been fighting him tooth and nail on everything. In order to give Democrats a majority in the House, we need to vote in 25 more Democratic seats. The Daily Cost website recently put out endorsements for 15 House seats, and they set up a donation page for a program they are calling the Pelosi Project. Daily Cost plans to keep up the candidate research in order to grow the list to the 25 needed seats.
Madonna made a splash in Russia recently. In case you don't know or don't remember, St. Petersburg, Russia, not so long ago, I think within the last year, passed a rather strict law. It's like no gay propaganda law, which states that there can be no public displays or speech about or condoning homosexuality, especially to minors. That's a law. Yeah, they made that law. I know someone's out there going, that's not a law. Yes, it is in St. Petersburg, Russia, and other cities in Russia are considering it. So, of course, Madonna, being Madonna, ignored the warning that they gave her when she was going to give her concert in St. Petersburg recently. And they warned her, she better respect the law. Well, during her concert, she asked the audience to raise their hands to show their pink armbands in support of gay and lesbian people in the audience.
Good for her.
Right? The odd part of about all of this is that the authorities have done nothing. But an activist group in St. Petersburg has. They filed a lawsuit for $10.5 million. United States money, people. Madonna says if she loses the lawsuit, that she's just going to donate all the money to orphanages. And I say, yay, Madonna.
Well, we all know that Madonna is well known around the world, and she often speaks her mind. And regardless of whether or not one agrees with her or not, you have to give her credit on this one. This one was a pretty good one.
Yeah, you got to wonder if she didn't, tell her people, well, when you set up my concert this next time, you be sure I got a one in St. Petersburg, Russia, because we're going to show them a thing or two.
Oh, no.
Oh, what do we got here? Oh, and the next one. Oh, you take it.
All righty. Let's see here. Well, Brad Pitt has spoken up for gay marriage once again, which is a great thing. While speaking with the Telegraph publication in London, he said, and I quote, "Gay marriage is inevitable. The next generation, they get it. It is just a matter of time before it becomes reality." Close quote.
Yeah, now we're talking. Hold on, let me throw out an applause for Brad. Yeah.
Well, being the heartthrob that he is, you know everyone's going to listen to him.
Yeah.
Gives you nice dreams already, don't it?
You take the next one, too, because I see two coming up. I'm going to want the next two.
Alrighty, I'll do that. Hey, Tom, Barbara Walters recently hosted a Don't Ask, Don't Tell repeal anniversary celebration.
Go, Barbara Wawa.
Wow. LGBT organizations put together the event called Celebrating Our Heroes. SLGN and OutServe were a couple of the organizers involved. Barbara Walters was the MC for the evening at this historical event.
And it was. Yeah, the SLGN is the Service Members Legal something network.
Well, now, we have to thank our troops, even if we don't like what they're doing.
Well, they're just doing what they're told to do. That's what they got to do.
Amen.
You know?
That's right.
But
that is right.
SLGN was one of the main groups that was, and OutServe, both of them, were primarily focused on getting Don't Ask, Don't Tell repealed. So, onward. From the well-known website, I like to call it the World Nut Daily. It's called World Net Daily. But a columnist at the World Nut Daily, as I call it, said that, and you might have seen the picture of the president and the pizza man in Florida that were. The pizza man gave him a big bear hug and lifted him up off the ground, you know. And this World Nut Daily columnist is suggesting that the president and the pizza man literally couldn't keep their hands off of each other. He basically intimated that they were lovers without saying so. Now, I'm sure, like I said, some of you saw the photo of the pizza parlor owner in Florida giving President Obama a big bear hug. And due to this columnist over at the World Nut Daily decided that the pizza parlor owner is the president's secret gay lover. From the way they describe it, you'd think the two men engaged in an extended tongue-swapping session during their hug, which they did not. Of course, the bias and the bigotry of World Nut Daily is well known, and it has been for years, and so this doesn't really come as much of a surprise. But it does point out the extremism that some folks will exhibit due to their personal bias, bigotry, or perhaps even their own sexual insecurity. Because if two men can't share a platonic hug in public, our world really is in trouble.
I would agree with that.
Onward, this next one here, I just got to stick the knife in and twist it on this one. Has Chick-fil-A abandoned their anti-gay ways? Some would suggest they have. But first, I pose a question. Are Christian lies worse than non-Christian lies? When a person or an organization claims moral superiority due to their religious choices, should they be held to a higher standard? I think so. As we all know, Chick-fil-A has had some problems setting up new retail outlets in some cities in the United States. These problems are directly related to Chick-fil-A's owner's statements and donations from the organization involving marriage equality. Chicago is one of the cities where Chick-fil-A wants to set up a new retail outlet. However, due to the owner's public statements about marriage equality, that's proven to be a bit difficult. In fact, the opening of their store has been blocked by a city councilman, or I believe in Chicago they call them aldermen. Chicago isn't the only city telling Chick-fil-A to go elsewhere. Boston, New York City, and San Francisco demand that Chick-fil-A either change its position or avoid their towns as well. In order to get around the issue, Chick-fil-A has been in conversations and mediations with the aldermen in Chicago. And in order to placate the aldermen, they have issued an internal memo to all the franchise owners and stakeholders of Chick-fil-A stating that Chick-fil-A will, quote unquote, treat every person with honor, dignity, and respect regardless of their beliefs, race, creed, sexual orientation, and gender, and that its intent is not to engage in political or social debates. Did you get that? Yeah. Sounds good. looks good on the print. The company also states that its WinShape Foundation, which has donated millions to anti-gay organizations, including listed hate groups, is now taking a much closer look. Now, listen to this. WinShape is now taking a much closer look at the organizations that it considers helping, and in that process will remain true to its stated philosophy of not supporting organizations with political agendas. Sounds good again. But they're going to take a look. They haven't, made any concrete decision to do anything. But they're going to take a look. With all this said, somehow, someway, the alderman in Chicago is now reconsidering his previous position of not allowing Chick-fil-A to open a retail outlet there. And some of this, as I stated, sounds convincing until we hear the rest of the story. Just days after all of this is tossed out on the table, all that I just mentioned was said and done, and the alderman is reconsidering his position of allowing Chick-fil-A to open up in Chicago. Just mere days later, Dan Cathy, the president and owner of Chick-fil-A, the one who was so outspoken and started all this in the first place, tweeted a photo of the 2012 WinShape Ride for the Family, which is a motorcycle ride 200 miles there in Georgia. Registration forms for the event, which range from hundreds of dollars all the way up to multiple thousands of dollars to be, $20,000 if you want to be a platinum. I'm the Grand Poobah donator guy. Registration forms for the event ask that the checks be sent not to the WinShape Foundation that Chick-fil-A operates, but directly to a group called Marriage and Family Foundation of Atlanta. And if you haven't guessed it, the sole purpose of the Marriage and Family Foundation is to fight marriage equality. Now, some might sit here and say, well, then they're doing what they said they're going to do. The WinShape Foundation, well, there's nothing that says the WinShape Foundation ain't giving no money. But the registration forms are asking them to make their checks payable to the Marriage and Family Foundation. So you would think the bulk of the money, but that's yet to be seen. So even though there is a fine line here, it still comes across to me as less than honest, considering the statements made in the Chicago negotiations. And I think I've said enough about it. I think any thinking person can read between the lines there and see that it really does appear that not much has changed at Chick-fil-A. Not much at all.
Not much indeed.
Kale, tell us what happened in California the last couple of days.
Oh, well, the big news in California. California Governor Brown signed into law two important bills this last week. One of them provides protections for churches and clergy members that do not wish to perform marriages for same-sex couples. The second one prohibits minors from being forced into conversion or reparative therapy.
All right.
And of course, being like they are, anti-gay groups in California are taking legal action against the second law. No one is taking legal action against the first one.
Yeah, of
That's
course.
good on that.
Yeah, right. But applause for the second law. Applause. Woo! Woo! Let me tell you a little bit about Scott Lively. I've talked about Scott Lively so many times, I just kick myself for giving him so much airtime. But Scott Lively needs it. This is a person he's scary, if you ask me. I could tell you stuff. I could go on and on and on and on for quite some time about the escapades of this extremely anti-gay man named Scott Lively. In fact, in the past I have. But for now, I'll just say he is a self-professed homosexuality expert. And he was one of the quote-unquote experts that went to Uganda to talk to them about homosexuality. And after his visit to Uganda, that's when they came up with their Kill the Gays bill in the Ugandan parliament. Scott Lively, according to his website, is being sued by the Ugandan community for inciting the persecution of LGBTQIA people in that country. On his website, he has announced an event to publicly, quote-unquote, indict President Barack Obama for the president's support of marriage equality under the civil laws of the United States. In that announcement, he also states that it is not a call to violence. In fact, he goes on for a paragraph or two stating this is not a call for violence. Which, why even mention it? If it's not a call for violence, why even mention it's not a call for violence? It almost sounds like an oxymoron kind of thing, Like, I don't want you to get violent, but we need to indict the president. But don't get violent, It's almost like saying the exact opposite, the way, it sounds. I find it interesting because in the past, the words of this man have directly resulted in violence. In fact, in Uganda, the passing of the Kill the Gays bill. That's one story, And then there's another story where in California, he preached at a church in California to a Slavic church. The people come from, I think, Slovenia or whatever, it's over there by Russia, Slavics that were coming to the United States, immigrants kind of people, and they had their own little church there in whatever area in California, and Mr. Lively went there and preached to them. And this is a man, by the way, in case you didn't know, Mr. Lively actually has a PhD. He's a lawyer, and he's a theologian, and, he's a very learned man, but he lives on another planet. Anyway, he went to this Slavic church, and he preached to them about the evils of homosexuality. And lo and behold, it just so happened, I believe it was on a holiday weekend. I want to say July 4th, but I'm not sure. This was several years ago. I'm talking 6 years ago, something, maybe 8 years ago. A gay man was there with some friends of his, some co-workers. The majority of them were straight. In fact, one of the women there was pregnant. But he was a very effeminate gay man, and I think he was from Fiji, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure, but I believe he was an immigrant himself. And more than a couple, actually, there were several men that were in a nearby picnic table that were Slavic, and they were there with their wives and children, and they were members of this church that heard Mr. Lively speak to them. And one of them ends up getting in a fight with the gay man because in the opinion of the Slavic people, he was just too effeminate. And they ended up punching him, and he hit his head on a rock and died. One of the Slavic men who was involved in the altercation was actually found guilty, but he wasn't the one that threw the punch that killed the man. The one that threw the punch that killed the man left the United States and went back to his home country. Nothing has ever been done with him. But the other one that stayed in the United States that was involved in the altercation actually got several months of community service.
Community service for killing the man.
Yeah, well, he didn't actually throw the punch that killed the man. He was just part of the mob. Yeah. Take the next one, Kale. I'm pissed now.
Two Republican United States senators have introduced a bill to restrict the religious rights of military chaplains. You heard that correctly. They want to restrict the religious rights of military chaplains. Even though the Pentagon has already stated that military chaplains are not required to perform same-gender ceremonies, the bill reinstates that position. Of course, that is simply a cover for the second part of the bill, which would prohibit any same-gender ceremony from taking place on military property or facilities, i.e., barracks or, ships at sea or anything, even in states where such a ceremony would be perfectly legal.
Yeah, and that helps out the job situation a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And we have a little bit of sadness here in our next piece, which is our final piece for today's show. In Philadelphia, a transgender woman named Kyra Cruz was fatally shot. Many transgender people, they seem to get shot and killed more than anybody else. I just don't understand it. Anyway, Kyra was active and well-known in the Philadelphia LGBT community. She worked in HIV/AIDS outreach at the Gay and Lesbian Latino AIDS Initiative and participated in pride events for which she designed costumes and choreographed dances. Her mother wrote a small piece titled, "My Daughter, Kyra Cruz." And it goes like this. She said, "For those of you who read the story about my daughter, Kyra Cruz, please know that her family is definitely trying to be sure that justice is served. We have no intention of just letting her case just get pushed aside as if she had no value or importance in this world. Kyra was my only daughter. She was a beautiful, loving, caring, intelligent young woman. She could have done so much, and she was the strongest person I have ever had the privilege of knowing. She lived how she believed and wouldn't change to conform, no matter how hateful people could be to her. She just kept living her life." For more info about Kyra or updates in her case, please check out In Memory of Chris Harold, a.k.a. Kyra Cruz, or Justice for Kyra on Facebook. Be safe out there, and much love, Mama Dawn. So, yes, if you want to know more or follow this injustice, visit the Facebook page at facebook.com/justice for Kyra. Kyra is spelled Kyra. And in order to honor Kyra and her mother, and I'm going to play the Apache honoring song. For Kyra. May your spirit, yep, her spirit is now flying high. Oh, close us out. Wrap us up, Kale.
Well, I would like to thank each and every one of you out there in our listener world for spending some time with us here on Queer Public Radio. Please remember, we are all part of this one human family. Of course, that means that each of us, all of us, are brothers and sisters. Let's remember that when we treat each other with respect. Much love and aloha.
Thank you, Kale, and we'll see you next week and get past all the technical glitches and stuff. Thank you much for your time. It was a pleasure.
I love you, and you, and you. Oh, and you too. And don't forget him. I love her, and him, and her, and him, and him, and her. I love you all. Adios. Have a nice trip. Bon voyage. Farewell to thee.
leave the light on for you.